Welcome to QI for another handful of pickled herrings from the groaning smorgasbord of knowledge. And joining me tonight in the bistro of bewilderment are Rich Hall, Greg Macaulay, Joe Brown and Alan Davis. Well, let's tuck in, shall we? Rich. And Fred. Joe. And Alan. Naturellement. B is for bottle, burgundy, barbecue, and, as Alan has shown us, burp. And the start of the day as well, which is biography. So this question, who first discovered that the world was round?
It's flat, isn't it? Is it going to be a trick question?
You're cagey from the first.
Right from the off.
Right from the off, you're cagey. Any thoughts?
Copernicus.
Not Copernicus.
Galileo.
No, Galileo.
Someone with a telescope worked it out.
They would be able to work out that the moon was round, but your telescope is not that useful for looking at the Earth, is it? Yes, mate.
Len Murray.
Are you talking about the General Secretary of the
I am.
Len Murray?
Not him, no.
It wasn't he.
No.
In fact,
He discovered the potato was round.
He discovered the potato was round.
Was it somebody with a boat?
It wasn't, no, indeed. We're talking about something, perhaps, or at least something that isn't human.
A bird.
An animal, not a bird even.
They fly
Fish.
all over the... Fish.
Not a fish. Good, though. You're on the right lines. Not
Dolphin,
a whale.
sharks.
No, not sea animals at all.
Sea?
Not
Land?
the sea. Land.
A
Bees.
panda.
Bees is the right answer.
Using the thing and
Bees.
the thing.
They can reckon on the position of the sun even at night.
Even whilst eating pollen, they can keep an eye on it. Termite mounds go round in a spiral like that because as the termites build them in the day, they stay out of the sun. So the sun goes round and they go round like that.
Staying cool.
Quite interesting.
It's quite interesting.
Yes, I know
Very
what
good.
it is, but it's not about bees, though, is it?
Well, what is about bees is they also have the most developed magnetic sense of any animal. And if you put a strong magnet next to one of those, a honeycomb, it completely changes the shape into something that's never seen in nature, a cylindrical-shaped honeycomb, if you put a magnet next to them.
Yeah, but you would be stung to death if you did that, wouldn't you?
Well, it's true. It wouldn't be a wise proceeding. You could wear one of those amusing costumes.
Yeah.
Can I ask Alan, you know, on a cloudy day, do the termites really just...
They really motor upwards.
They probably do. They probably do.
You can see the termite mound goes swirling and then whoop, suddenly...
But bees are very interesting animals, or at least quite interesting. Most bees, what happens when they sting you?
They die.
No, they don't. Odd enough. Only the
Yes, they do.
Only the honeybee.
Yes, they do.
Only the honeybee.
They've got one sting. Wasps have more than one sting.
No, only one species of bee.
You're not allowed to kill bees. You can kill wasps, though.
Only one type of bee, which is the honeybee, leaves its sting behind and dies. But all the other species of bees, and there are many, can sting you repeatedly. And actually, there's several species of wasp that die when they sting you. So if you're stung by an animal that has died, it's more likely to have been a wasp.
I think you'll find that if a bee has stung me inside my house, it's likely to die.
I'm not surprised. Honey. Eddie Izzard once observed it was very odd. Bees make honey. Earwigs, he said, don't make chutney. It takes 12 bees an entire lifetime to make enough honey to fill a teaspoon. So the lifetime of 12 bees. And you go into a supermarket, you see all those jars, think how many bees have been working away.
And if it's a 125 millilitre jar, it'll take 300 bees.
Fantastic. What a loss to the accountancy profession.
Those are hexagons.
They are hexagons, little six-sided bee cells. Brilliant.
But why do they make hexagon shapes?
The hexagonal form uses the minimum amount of wax for the maximum amount of storage in a given area. I'll just finish off this thing. Honeybees have evolved a complex language to tell each other where the best nectar is using the sun as a reference point. Amazingly, they can also do this on overcast days and at night by calculating the position of the sun on the other side of the world. This means they can actually learn and store information.
Has it occurred to you that they may not be using the sun? That whoever has worked that out is wrong. And he's now saying, even when you can't see it or it's on the other side of the world, they still use it. The bees are thinking, no, we don't, we just remember where we live. Why is it so remarkable that they know where they live?
Well, because they have only 950,000 neurons as opposed to our 10 billion neurons in our brains.
But they've only got one thing to remember, where they live.
They've got a lot more to remember.
So how come I've got 10 billion and sometimes I forget where I live?
Which brings us to our next question, which is why do bees buzz? Joe.
Because they can.
They buzz so that when they're trapped in the living room, you know to open the window.
It's a thought.
Is it to sound industrious?
Yeah.
You have to look at bees as aerospace workers. And stay with me.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm still there.
When you're flying, you want to make a lot of noise because a quiet aircraft is crashing.
I think it's their knees knocking that makes the buzzing, isn't it? Because they hate flying. Terrified of flying.
What is it that makes the noise?
The wings.
No. No, it isn't, I'm afraid.
Not the wings, then.
No, it won't be the wings.
Testicles.
They're little tiny mouths.
Well, it is sort of little mouths. It's through what they breathe. They're called spiracles. They have them down their sides, through which they breathe. All buzzing insects, bluebottles the same. It's not the wings. Less than 1% of the buzz comes from their wings. Bees breathe through 14 holes along the sides of their bodies, and they're called spiracles. And each one has a valve to limit the flow of air, which the bee can do. And they can tune it, rather like a trumpeter, sort of using his lips. What's that called? Embouchure. Embouchure. And in the same way that one human lung on a trumpet can fill a vast hall with a great sound, more than it can with its own vocal cords. So a bee can make this extraordinary noise just through controlling its breathing.
Isn't science marvellous?
Are humans the only species that make unnecessary noise?
Oh, that's an interesting idea.
No, dogs.
I mean, do you think any animals just sit around and hum or just
Whistle.
Or talk inanely, Alan.
That's why there are no panel shows in the animal kingdom.
As to other animals, also beginning with bees, can barnacles grow wings, is the question.
I do know one thing about barnacles. I'm afraid it's rude, but
Go on.
that, relatively speaking, they have the biggest penis of any existing creature,
You are
which is
absolutely
5 times the length of their shell.
7 times the length I've got down here.
Oh,
but maybe
you
it was a
exaggerate.
particularly boastful. Typical barnacle. Well, up until recently, it was thought that barnacles were the embryos of the barnacle goose.
What fool thought that?
Well, I'll tell you, it is a bit silly sounding. There's a barnacle goose, which was named Anser hibernica after the Latin, and that got shortened to hibernica, became bernica, which became barnacle. These geese breed in the Arctic, and so no one had ever seen them mate or lay eggs. When they arrived in the summer, at the same time there'd be a lot of driftwood coming in off the sea, covered in barnacles, and people just made the weird assumption that the barnacles must be the baby barnacle geese. But barnacles growing on ships can increase the inefficiency by a huge amount. You need-
Barnacles
On
growing
chips?
on chips?
Ships do. That really worried you.
Oh, it would.
Yeah.
How long would you have to leave a chip lying about for a barnacle? It's not going to happen in my house.
the way they glue themselves to things is very, very tough, and scientists are currently looking at it as a kind of dental cement. Better than, you know, Polygrip or whatever these things are that they advertise roundabout during Countdown for some reason. They always advertise these strange things that keep teeth together and ways of lowering yourself into a bath. You know when W.H. Auden got old, the poet?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, all right, yes.
Isn't it a good one, this? W.H. Auden.
When he was old, he had an incredibly lined face, really, like a native, really kind of, you know, craggy lines, you know, like Chief Joseph or one of those, you know, really kind of... And David Hockney, one of his first commissions...
Painter.
Yes, well done. One of his first commissions as a young artist was to do a series of drawings of W.H. Auden. And Hockney just took one look at Auden and said, blimey, if that's his face, what can his scrotum look like?
Oh.
How did Nelson keep his men's spirits up after he died?
Did he allow Hardy to use him as a ventriloquist dummy?
No, it wasn't.
I would think the men would just be inspired by the fact that he just basically slowly dismantled instead of dying all at once. Right? I mean, there was an arm, then there was an eye, then there was like a testicle, right? It's like dropping parts like a Volkswagen. Look at that.
The thing is, most sailors, when they died, were thrown overboard and buried at sea. And he asked not to be buried at sea. And so he was going to be taken back from Trafalgar, which is sort of off the Spanish coast, to Britain. So what were they going to do with his body to make sure it didn't rot?
Put it in beer.
Well, not beer, but brandy, actually.
Brandy.
He was pickled in a barrel of brandy.
And they were allowed to drink it?
Well, they weren't allowed to,
They were allowed to
supposedly.
They wanted to.
Using tubes of macaroni.
They did.
They would have a go at this brandy. And by the time it got to Portsmouth, it was no brandy left. Slightly unfortunate-looking Nelson. And to this day in the Navy, they use the phrase tapping the Admiral for having a surreptitious slug of anything alcoholic.
You can just picture them with this macaroni straw going... Oh, God, that's the... I think that's the other one out. You got another patch?
But in fact, sadly, like all these good stories, it supposedly isn't true. Now, why are male anglers so pathetic? Joe Brown.
Because they like fishing.
Well, yes, Rich.
Because they spend £2,000 on equipment when you can go to the market and buy the same thing for £1.89.
There's a good book in this country, Fly Fishing by J.R.
Yeah, absolutely. The classic.
Why are they pathetic, though?
Well, what we don't mean is human male anglers. There's another type of angler that isn't human.
Oh. Anglerfish.
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 Male anglerfish truly are pathetic.
You can eat them, can't you, anglerfish? I'm sure I've had one.
They're well, there are shallow anglerfish and there are very, very deep ones. You wouldn't want to eat that. It's a bit spiny.
I wouldn't go calling that pathetic to its face, I'll tell you.
That's the female.
All right.
The female is very impressive.
Ah.
The male has a sad life. It must be the feeblest male in nature, 6 times smaller than the female. And when they find a mate, they latch onto them with their teeth and immediately start to disappear. Scales, bones, blood vessels, all merge into those of the female. And after a week, all that's left are 2 tiny little testes, which leak sperm
I have
into
to say,
the
that
female.
sounds very much like my marriage.
Your husband has entirely been subsumed
He
into
has, and he's 6 times smaller than I am.
There are some of these female anglerfish going around with about 8 testicles hanging off them.
It's like an Essex disco. That was wine.
That thing coming out of the top of its head like that is why it's called an anglerfish. It's its little rod, as it were, and it's bioluminescent. It lights up.
Attracting other innocent, edible fish.
Well, that's what used to be thought. They now think it maybe that's the way of attracting the male towards it, which then gets absorbed. That brings us on, bioluminescence, to what comes from Glasgow and glows in the dark.
Is it Sir Alex Ferguson's nose?
Is it the River Clyde?
It's not the River Clyde, neither. We're talking about food.
Luminous food.
Yes, luminous food. It's an idea that comes from creatures like the anglerfish.
Is it a deep-fried Mars bar with a torch attached to it?
A deep-fried torch.
Well, you're in the right you're in the right area with deep fried. What I believe you call carryouts are the food to go.
Yes.
What is the most popular food in Britain supposedly these days?
chicken tikka masala.
Chicken tikka masala, which was invented in Glasgow. And there is one.
Oh, that's a particularly fine example.
That may be a used one that's been through the system. I have a horrible feeling.
Morag, get me a bed of rice.
Yes.
The children shall eat.
Well, there is a company called Biolume, which is planning to have food, including curry, that glows in the dark, using extracts of marine creatures that glow. And they want to make beer, in particular, that glows in the dark, children's fizzy drinks that glow in the dark. Chicken tikka masala is not something that exists in Bangladesh or in India. The story of it goes that there was a restaurant called the Gaylord in 1966. It was the first place to serve a proper chicken tandoori.
In Glasgow?
Rather popular.
Or London?
In London, Mortimer Street in London. And the story goes, somebody came into a restaurant in Glasgow where they were serving this new tandoori chicken and asked for some gravy to go on it. And the chef improvised with tomato soup and cream and spices. And up grew this strange creature that is chicken tikka masala, that has no definition, that can be hot, it can be mild, it can be brown, it can be orange, it can be grey. But according to Robin Cook, is the great British national
I have to
dish.
say, I had a curry once on the Isle of Man where I was doing a gig. It was served with a cup of tea and some bread and butter. It's fantastic, don't you?
Can I just mention that since we've been disparaging about the Scottish diet, that we don't all eat chips every night. Sometimes what we do is we have some chips and we leave them aside till the morning, and we have them cold the next day, and that's a salad.
Deep-fried pizza is the... and Mars bars.
It's a myth.
It's a myth.
not a
And
myth.
the Mars bar as well. It happened once. He dropped his Mars bar. I'm not wasting that. He scorched his hand getting the wrapper off.
Fantastic. Suppose you do have the worst teeth and the worst hearts in Europe, though, the
Yes.
Scots, don't you, unfortunately. Oh, your teeth are fine.
They're all right,
I'd
yeah.
say, yes.
I've started a wee company in Scotland. We take
Using
bus...
barnacle cement.
Well, they're okay, but the cement goes off and the penis comes out. We run bus trips to Eastern Europe to show Scottish people worse teeth.
Well, while we're in the Balti Belt, where is it possible to live on a diet of smut without the neighbours complaining?
In the green room at Channel 5.
A diet of smut is the clue, however.
Is it
sure
some
it's
sort
some
of
kind- it must be some-
Norwegian food or something?
Not Norwegian. It's called smut because it's a sooty black thing in its most primitive form.
Caviar.
No, really sooty and smutty in that
A
sense.
bit of coal.
No, but a living thing.
Fungi.
Fungus, exactly. It's a fungus, like a little...
Why
like a
did the
little
mushroom
blood.
go to the
No,
party?
no.
Oh, not that joke. Why did the mushroom go to the party, Alan?
Because he was a fungi.
Lovely. Lovely.
What's wrong with that joke, then?
That's a joke for, like, an imbecile. You know, of kind
Yes.
of 0.7 years old.
What's brown and sticky?
Oh, no. I don't know.
A stick.
I know.
I'm worried by the audience
What do
reaction
you call
here.
a boomerang that won't come back?
A stick.
A stick.
Do you have any other jokes where the punchlines are
Loads.
stick? All right.
What's orange and sounds like a parrot? A carrot.
What's red and silly? A blood clot. Oh, don't look at me like that! You pig-eyed sack of shit! Don't you do that!
You spoiled it.
Oh,
What's
right.
red and sits in the corner? A naughty strawberry.
Very good.
What's green and sings? Elvis Parsley.
Now, the smut fungus, Ustilaginales or something similar, is found in Mexico, in particular where it's prized as a food.
Why did the mushroom go to the party? always say fungi.
There we are.
How do you think the word smut is used to allude to pornography?
Because it's dirty.
Where does slut come from?
Essex.
So there's a particular smut, the corn smut, which is edible, and corn smut's been known to the Aztecs for centuries as huitacoche. And there it is, a picture of an engaging young corn smut, which has grown a sort of berry, which is the bit you eat. There you are. Try the magisterial Illustrated Genera of Smut Fungi by Kalman Vanke. It's a hell of a book. Yep. And so, with that rather obscure piece of information, let's plunge yet deeper into general ignorance. Fingers on buzzers, please. What contains the most caffeine? A cup of tea or a cup of coffee? Ah.
Tea.
In fact, about 3 times more caffeine than a cup of coffee, than a cup of tea.
Why did someone tell me it was tea then?
Well, because, weight for weight, a pound of tea leaves contains more caffeine than a pound of coffee beans.
Oh.
But in a cup of same, you get much more. As we know from drinking it. You know, it's kind of experience.
Yeah.
People always say, oh, there's more caffeine in tea. Yeah, drink it, you don't
But
get
there
that
is
buzz.
actually more caffeine in tea.
In weight for weight, but not in a cup of tea. Not in a cup of tea. No, which is the
There
question.
is more caffeine in tea.
Yeah, not in a cup of tea, which is the question.
Not in a cup of tea.
Not in a cup of tea. Which is what you drink. You don't tend to just eat tea like that. In quantities. You have a cup of tea, which has a third as much caffeine as a cup of coffee. Exactly. Quite right. Now, what's the only ball game invented entirely in the USA?
Ball game?
Yeah.
They haven't invented any ball games. We invented all ball games here in England.
Baseball?
No.
As Alan rightly knows, that's an English invention.
No, the English invented that.
Yeah, yeah. It's mentioned by Jane Austen in Northanger Abbey.
Rounders?
Rounders neither, I'm afraid.
Netball?
Netball, yes, you could. I'll give you netball.
Basketball.
You're right, Rick. Fantastic. Well done. Hey. Basketball and netball invented by the same person.
Dr. James Naismith, University of Kansas.
Though, in fact, he was actually teaching at Springfield, Massachusetts,
Yeah.
however. Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. You get lots of points there. And he was, in fact, a Canadian.
Yeah.
But he invented it in
From
the
Toronto.
USA. Yeah. If you'd said lacrosse, of course, that's also
That's
a
an
ball
Indian
game.
game.
But it wasn't the United States of America when that was invented. So that's the way out. But there is basketball specifically invented. And the weird thing about it is, you used an old peach basket. For 21 years, they played the game without putting a hole in the bottom of the peach basket. So someone had to get a stepladder every time there was a basket. Take it out.
Can't play basketball with a peach.
No, a peach basket.
A peach basket, they used. A basket for peaches.
The peach wouldn't bounce.
No, that's right.
Do you know... As a short arse, I think there should be different divisions for basketball, different height divisions.
Yeah.
You know, because, I mean, obviously, if you're 7'4", you've got an advantage over somebody like
that,
me. Yeah. I mean, you don't put little boxers like Prince Nassim Mohammed in against Mike Tyson.
No,
Oh,
I'd like to
goodness,
see
it's gonna
that.
be a crash.
I think there should be several baskets you can aim for.
What about...
A really high basket
Yeah.
for 10 points, and then a lower basket, and then one on the floor.
Did they invent netball as well, then?
Well, what happened was a woman from Louisiana wrote to Naismith and said, I'm
We've got
teaching
quite a girly
at my
version.
school. And one of the stories is she actually misinterpreted the rules because he laid out the dimensions of a basketball court and she thought, giving the various areas, and she thought the players had to stay within those areas, which I believe is one of the things about netball. You can't travel, you can't dribble in netball.
You can't. Once you've got the ball, you've got to stand still.
Yeah.
It wasn't as hard as the basketball we played because we would nail the basket to a truck, side of a truck. The game went on for miles.
Can I just say that little kid with the purple shirt is really beginning to annoy me, where you sit still, look, sit down!
This is very old footage because they're
There are white people.
yeah. Well,
Oddly enough, though, volleyball was invented at exactly the same college in Springfield, Massachusetts, as netball and basketball.
this guy's number is 0. There's just no confidence at all in him, is there?
Anyway, I think we've seen enough of that looped game. It's going to drive us all nuts. So, what were Nelson's last words? The last words of someone who sucked at Nelson's body. Yes?
That's my answer.
That's your answer.
Kismet Hardy. But did he say kiss me Hardy?
Oh, dear.
Well, whatever it is, it's rubbish.
It's not Kismet, and it's not Kiss Me.
I'll race you to the barrel of brandy. Last one in Zickaboo.
Hardy kissed the Admiral twice, apparently, once on the cheek and once on the forehead, when Nelson was struggling to remain conscious. He then said, God, I've done my duty. And then he said, it's rather peculiar, drink, drink, fan, fan, rub, rub. Those were his last words. He was thirsty, he was hot.
That was Navy lingo for give us a quick hand job, Hardy.
But those were, according to the reliable witnesses in the scene, they were all agreed.
But why
Those were,
don't you ever hear that at school, then?
because
What
the
were you gonna
famous
say?
lines that he said, thank God I've done my duty, and kiss me Hardy, but drink, drink, fan, fan, rub, rub.
But,
I know,
mean,
and that's
final
what's wrong with
words are not
schools.
to do with how interesting they
I know,
are.
I
Are they
wish-
to do with what people actually said, surely?
Myths build up, I'm afraid.
Did he say kiss me or kismet?
Kiss me. It's almost universally agreed he said kiss me. The kismet idea is nonsense.
Rubbish.
Yeah. He was hot and thirsty, so he had his steward standing by to fan him and feed him lemonade and watered wine, while the ship's captain, Dr. Scott, massaged his chest to ease the pain.
If you could go in a time machine, would you go there? You see, people always say, oh, I'd go here, there and everywhere, but you wouldn't go back. I'd go back and see myself.
Well, that would be fascinating.
So would I. I would
you?
go back to the time. I had a rolled up ball of socks and a hamper all the way across the room. And I just went like that. Right? Hits the wall, bounces off the ceiling, off this wall, back across that wall, right into the hamper from like 40 feet away. I would go back and watch that
That was
again.
your film. Fantastic. Brilliant.
It was fantastic. I hope that when you die, they play back something from your life.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Those moments, and no one saw it.
Stonehenge, the erection of. I'd go back there.
Yes?
Well done.
If you just waited a few
Go back,
thousand years...
go back with a power drill and a JCB. Become worshipped as a god.
And we've come to the end of the round, at the end of the competition. My last words are not drink, drink, fan, fan, rub, rub, or anything close to it. They are l'addition, s'il vous plaît. Let's see how the scores are. And rather meagre rations they are too, I'm sorry to say. Rich scored a lightly battered 5 points, which is very good and puts him in the lead. Fred is next with a gently coached 4 points. Joe managed a reheated -8 points. Alan, once again, it's the kebab van for you, I'm afraid, with -19 points. Well, that's all for this week. I leave you with the thought that while most of us drink at the fountain of wisdom, others merely gargle. From Rich, Fred, Joe, Alan and me, it's good night. Good night.